Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. So, as the title of this video suggests, we're discussing, unfortunately, this digital wallet situation yet again. Again, I'm doing some of these videos kind of informally. I'm kind of playing with different formats. I've been getting some feedback, both negative and positive. It's all appreciated. I hope we've gotten the worst of the mic problems on this mic worked out. And thanks again for the feedback on that to those folks who did provide it. That basically gave us a lot of good insight into this mic issue. So again, bear with us. It's going to get better. It's probably going to take me a couple of weeks. I do apologize, folks. Again, I do have a day job, and then on top of it, I'm not as tech savvy as I may otherwise seem. I've had a lot of help over the years with that stuff. At the end of the day, I just like putting out the content. Frankly, I would do this just with a microphone and almost do it vocally only, but then you'd have to create graphics for video or something. I don't really want to do that. And, I like, put my face out there, put the face with the voice, I guess. That being said, I thought of making this video, and again, we're posing the question, who asked for Thailand to have a digital economy in the first place? I certainly didn't. That said, I thought of making this video after reading a recent article from the Bangkok Post. It's bangkokpost.com. Article is titled, Days Left Before Cash Handouts. I mean, the first thing I will say is, it's interesting the way the headlines on this have changed. The whole digital wallet terminology seems to be a little passé at the moment, perhaps. In any event, quoting directly, the government is expected to distribute 145 billion baht in cash under its digital wallet handout program to vulnerable groups and state welfare card holders from September 20th. Deputy Finance Minister Julapon Amonwiwat said. He said this, and again, the fact, where is this 145 billion baht coming from? Is this the best way to spend it, just by handing it out? Are people actually getting money, or are they getting these digital tokens? I find it very interesting now. It's just the narrative has become, this is happening, and no details, particularly, or what details are given. It's all very, I urge those who are watching this video, and I'll put a link to the description. We usually like to cite them on screen. I'll put a link in the description below. But, you'll see where they start talking about the funding, and it's a lot of words, but when you start to really look at it, it's like, well, so where is the funding coming from? And we'll get into that in a moment. But 145 billion baht. Meanwhile, they're seriously talking about issues with the Social Security scheme. If this is coming from tax money, this is coming from people that already paid in. Again, I understand there are people out there who are in need, and again, there should be programs out there to help them, but we've seen from the West, stimulus and cash handouts are a bad policy across the board. It's just not a good idea. That said, quoting directly, he said the scheme will stimulate the sluggish economy. Well, first of all, that narrative has been necessary in order to create the quote-unquote exigent need for this handout, digital or otherwise, based on this notion that we're in some kind of an economic slump or whatever. That would have made some sense in 2020, 2021, 2022. I don't even think it would have made sense last year. But here in 2024, especially coming off a boom first quarter, it's weird because the news narrative is sort of schizophrenic. It's funny to watch because, on the one hand, they'll say, well, actually, things are pretty good, the tourism sector, and we want to have a good high season. But then they also have to continue with this, no, everything's horrible, so that we can get this digital handout, which I'm starting to wonder, is there some kind of inducement on folks to create this thing? Because they're pushing it hard, notwithstanding the fact there are serious questions about funding it. There's also serious questions about the legality of it, and there's serious questions about the legality of the loan, where you don't actually get money out of the end of the loan, but you put the nation on the hook to pay it back. But then it became not a loan, so we're going to gut the budget and still require a loan to pay for the things the budget otherwise would have paid for. We're going to need a loan for that later. So again, it's just a shell game as to whether or not it's funded by a loan. It's really kind of nuts. And then meanwhile, I don't know any Thais that voted for Thailand to be a wholly digital economy. Who does that serve? The cash economy in Thailand is purely analog. So do they really need that? And meanwhile, will all this fintech simply be used to extract wealth from the people who can afford it least? Quoting further, Mr. Pumtan said the 14.5 million state welfare card holders and disabled people could spend the money on any products at small shops or large department stores. Again, note there, they can spend the money only at small shops or large department stores. So it's not money. Again, the nation's going into debt, but the people who they say are going to be indebted by the taxes to pay this off, because ultimately we're going to have to go in debt for it. Whatever they say directly about this project or not, they have to take money from somewhere else that they will then go into debt later to pay for that shortfall. So at the end of the day, this is going to be financed by debt. They were being as truthful as they could be at the beginning. And now as things have come along and they're slogging through their own narrative and the fact that it makes no sense and it isn't good policy, they're coming up with all these other things. Again, so, but you can't spend this at anywhere, these welfare card holders, and I do understand, these people may need some help. But the notion that this was a loan of money that in kind was a monetary benefit to the people that will ultimately have to pay it back is a pretty spurious claim. In any event, quoting further, he said the scheme's so-called negative list, which was introduced to ensure it would be spent at small shops only, will no longer apply. Well, first of all, and we'll get into the negative list here, it only will be that way because they say so. The system still allows for them to do this in the future, tell you what you can and can't buy with these digital tokens, with this digital money. You know, again, they could change that in a heartbeat. With the push of a button, they could say, well, you can't buy this stuff now. And what is that negative list? Products on that list include alcoholic drinks, tobacco products, cannabis products, kratom products, vouchers, cash cards, gold, gemstones, diamonds, oil, fuel. Well, God, you know, okay, the rest, some of that you can claim it's vice, you know, or luxury, and then, you know, all of this at the end of the day is socialism. So they don't, you know, they're going to tell you what to do, so they're going to be nanny minders and tell you what vices they don't want you to interact with, and then they'll also tell you what luxury goods you can and can't buy, gold and gemstones. Again, if it was real money, you could spend it on whatever you want. But again, we're going into debt to give people something that isn't money to not spend it on whatever they want. But what I love is oil fuel was on that negative list, which you talk about the one thing we all need to survive, albeit indirectly, oil and fuel. Quoting further, natural gas, electrical appliances, electronic equipment, and communication devices. Interestingly, and I cited the articles at the time, they actually said debt, and I think they even said electricity, paying for your own electricity wouldn't be allowed with this thing. So again, I asked, how is this money? And by the way, they're doing you no favors by saying, oh, well, okay, we've taken all that off the list and we'll allow you to buy that stuff. Well, first of all, will the stores that you're being able to go and buy things from stock those goods and services? I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. Secondly, again, okay, they've turned off that restriction. This digital system is by nature totalitarian. They'll be able to turn it on and off at will moving forward. Just understand that, because that's what's going on here. Quoting further, as for those who already registered via the Tangrat application, they will receive 5,000 baht by the end of this year if the digital wallet system is not finished in time. Well, that's what I think is interesting. Oh, we're moving ahead, we're moving ahead. This is happening imminently. Again, this is a narrative trick, because once they can get it in people's heads that it's already occurred, they don't care about it anymore. But then in the same article, they said, if it is not finished in time. Well, so it's not finished. This is not a foregone conclusion. Thailand does not have to be saddled with this. Debt, totalitarian surveillance of the finance system at the lowest possible level, and the eventual wealth extraction from the lowest possible socioeconomic level that they can drill down and get to. Therefore, the people who can afford such wealth extraction least. That's what this system is designed for. Quoting further, The other half of the payment will be made in digital currency next year. So again, this is what's interesting. They're alluding to what is probably going to happen. They're trying to roll this out and then get everybody over onto digital. And then once they're all onto digital, everything's tracked and traced, we are financially enslaved from that moment. That's what we're talking about here. This isn't hyperbole. You know, the experts around the world that talk about central bank digital currencies, even the ones within the World Economic Forum and the ones that they've talked about from BIS, Carstens has talked about that. Oh, we can, you know, stop at source in people's transactions. This is about control. This isn't about money. We need to end this. We need to nip this in the bud before it gains any further momentum. This is nonsense. And we have to go into orders of magnitude more debt than we need to as a nation to put this system on us. Quoting further, the scheme is the cornerstone of the government's plan to jumpstart Southeast Asia's second largest economy, which grew 2.3% in the second quarter. Well, you know, I'm here to tell you, I'm sick of this narrative that Thailand's got some economic problems because it's not growing as fast as a bunch of bankers basically think it should be growing. Because that's what this comes down to. GDP, by the way, is purely a function, a metric, if you will, of the economy in bank credit terms. The cash economy is not tabulated in this. Thailand's economy is far larger than it's tabulated to be. But it's also a free economy. It's also a free market, a free enterprise system. And the moment that this digitization, in terms of the actual fiat currency, the money, the legal tender of Thailand is turned into this, it will be totalitarian. And by the way, it will stifle and eventually kill the real economy in GDP terms. People, you know, it's neo-Soviet. It's that bad. And again, it's predicated on this notion that 2.3% growth in a very sophisticated economy is somehow some huge problem. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying Thailand's economy couldn't be improved. But the notion that there's some kind of exigent emergency that requires 2 orders of magnitude injection liquidity into the system that currently exists in the banking system at this time, and that 2 orders of magnitude is supposed to come from the nation in terms of national debt, and so we're supposed to pay for this, and meanwhile they can't, we've done the videos, they can't even show that it's going to create significant economic stimulus. I think in one article, it was in the Bangkok Post, they said it was like 0.1% maybe. You know, again, I could be a little off on the numbers, but again, the conclusion was it will have a nominal maybe effect on growth, because at the end of the day, it's predicated on the theory that Keynesianism, i.e. government intervention, injecting money into the economy, somehow over time creates value and improves that economy. The fact of the matter is, yeah, the theoretical Keynesianism can work, but theory is one thing. It's sort of like communism. Theory is one thing, application is another. It doesn't at the end of the day. And if you want the proof of that, look at Western Europe and what the United States is sitting in right now. Basically the collective West, where Keynesianism gets you. Not to good places, really. That's quoting further, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, that's the current prime minister, said last week that part of the handout will now be given in cash. How about all of it? Or don't do it at all? You know, what we're seeing now is the curtain is removed. It's not the handout. Nobody cares about that part of it, about who gets what. It's rolling out this digital currency. That is what certain people, I've done other videos where I've asked the question, is the World Economic Forum behind this at the end of the day? Because this is right out of their playbook, is to get this country on this tyrannical, totalitarian financial system. Because that's what it looks like to me is the priority. It's not really getting people the money. They've been perfectly happy to bend and bob and weave and move around on that and ultimately come up with solutions where people actually get the money. Even going so far as to compromise and saying some of the money will come to you in cash. But what seems to be the real priority to certain individuals, and let's be really clear, there is no electoral mandate for this. Okay? There just isn't. You know, I was here for this last election. Pheu Thai basically won, now I don't know, somewhere between 27% and a third of the total seats in Parliament, somewhere in there. Didn't have any, you know, does not have an electoral mandate, does not have a majority, does not have an electoral mandate. I'm not going to get into all the rest of the last election, but long story short, they represent one minority party in a coalition with another few minority parties to create a government. Okay, why we're supposedly having to be saddled with their campaign promises under those circumstances is baffling to me. They didn't win a majority. You know, why are we being driven to this, driven to something that will fundamentally change this country? For the worse, by the way. This digital currency will have tremendous negative ramifications on just the rank and file of the Thai economy. And it's being driven supposedly under some mandate that really doesn't exist, some electoral mandate. Yes, we have a legitimate government here in Thailand. Is there some broad mandate for this digital currency or turning Thailand's economy into a digital one? No, that's not what anybody voted on. Quoting further, Mr. Julaporn previously said 32 million people have registered to the program, including vulnerable groups, but not those without smartphones. Another interesting take. This whole program will push, if you will, nudge and herd, if you will, everyone into smartphone usage, which once everyone's on smartphones, that's like a low jack. And then they can hook all the money through it, and they can control everything in your life through your smartphone. If you think that sounds hyperbolic, just look at the last 4 years and the notion of vaccine passports and all of that nonsense. You think that's 1 ounce different than this digital wallet? No, we did the videos on it. In fact, it's going to be basically the same thing. They're going to include your ID, all that good stuff. They want it to be vaccine passports. This isn't hyperbole. This is bad for Thailand. Nobody's going to greatly benefit from this in Thailand. I don't even see anybody that really wants it. It just looks to me as if foreign interests have placed inducements for, or it looks to me like one could infer that foreign interests have created inducements to saddle Thailand with this system. I don't think nobody's charging the gate for digital money. Quoting further, through which funds were due to be received via an application. So drive everybody onto smartphones, put an application on there, now all your money's attached to that. Your ID, everything. I mean, I can't think of a more direct and precise definition of totalitarianism. Quoting further, according to the government's latest figures, revised figures, the $450 billion bought for the handout scheme will be sourced from the budgets for fiscal years 2024 and 2025. Well, yeah, they're going to gut the budget that we were otherwise going to spend on things that we do need in the normal course of living our lives and doing business, spend it on this thing, which will saddle us into a totalitarian, tokenized digital system for all of our economy, and then they'll have to go in debt down the road for the things that they needed to spend for the normal course of business. So at the end of the day, we're in more debt. And we end up with this digital money totalitarian financial surveillance system. Quoting further, Thanawat Pornwichai, chief advisor of the University of the Thai Chamber of Commerce's Center for Economic and Business Forecasting, said that the distribution of 10,000 baht in cash to vulnerable groups is expected to help boost GDP by 3.5 to 4% in the fourth quarter this year. Yeah, except for the fact I did already from actual economists. You know, this person, chief advisor of the University of the Thai Chamber of Commerce's Center for Economic and Business Forecasting. Well, okay, he's a chief advisor to a university. Okay, this person may have some economic insights, perhaps. I've read the economic analysis from economists that said, at best, this moves the needle very little. I've done the videos on that. You can go back and look at the archives of this channel. You know, at the end of the day, you know, I can't believe we're still really having this conversation. It's clear to me their interests, and I believe they're primarily foreign, again, the World Economic Forum being chief among them, who would like to saddle Thailand with a financial system, a financial surveillance system that will basically result in financial enslavement by everybody. You know, and again, these are foreign interests that want this. I think it's a terrible idea, and we all got to go in debt to have it done to us. So perhaps we could maybe change our thinking on this, and I think the question remains, whoever voted for Thailand to be a digital economy?